Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be starting a new series. So, according to my library app, I currently own 335 unread books. Now, I'm sure that number is not 100% accurate because I do have some BookBox subscription books I have not accounted for yet, but we're going to go with what the library app says for now. And I will say that as much as I love having options, the weight of my TBR is very much starting to get to me. That is about 40 to 50% of the entirety of all the books I own. And while I love me some options, that's kind of getting overwhelming. So in order to address this issue, like I said, we are starting a TBR takedown series. So in this TBR jar is every single title that I own. And we are going to be drawing from this jar and we are going to be reading the titles. So there are a couple rules in an effort to kind of help me keep from backsliding on this. First of all, I get one skip. So if I want to skip more than one book that I draw, then it is an automatic unhaul. I have to make a decision. Secondly, I have to read 3 books. And if I draw a book that I have not yet gotten to in a series, for example, if I'm on book 2 of a series and I draw book 4, I then have to read book 3 because that is just kind of where we are. And I don't want to keep pushing series and keep getting, books further down the line and then throwing them back in the pond, so to speak. So if we get a book in a series, I have to read the next one that I need. And if I want to skip, I get 1. And those are the rules. So this week, I think we're going to do a romance edition, which I am pretty dang excited about. I have not had a lot of romance books in my reading lineup recently, so I am super excited. So without further ado, let us pull our books. There is one other exception. If I get one of the Boys of Tommen books, I am going to be skipping that because I do think that I'm going to do a whole reading vlog dedicated to reading and getting caught up on the series. So that is the only exception to the rules. With that being said, there's one. I'm not going to dig down into it because I feel like if I do, the whole thing's going to blow up because it's so tightly packed, but 2 and 3. So these are our 3 reads for this vlog. Let us start with this one. That is upside down. That is right side up. Loathe to Love You by Ali Hazelwood. Okay, so that's her collection of novellas. So I am super excited about that. It looks like it has 3 novellas. So I do enjoy Ali Hazelwood's writing, and I am happy to get this. So we will be reading that one. And then what else did we get? Oop, turn around. Oh, I can kind of see through the back. The Bromance Book Club. So that is... I thought it was right up here. Have I misplaced it? 1 minute while I go find that book. It was on my TBR shelf. So my understanding of this book is that I think it's baseball player, his marriage is crumbling, and when he tells and confides in his teammates that his marriage is crumbling, they inform him that they have a book club where they read classic romances like Pride and Prejudice and all that kind of thing. And they kind of read them to help their marriages and help understand their wives and what their wives want. And so it's kind of the story of him joining the book club in an effort to save his marriage, I think. Yeah, okay. And then our last one, I think it's this one, is The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. So that is right here. So this is I think, male-male romance between 2 characters. I have only read Red, White, and Royal Blue from this author, but I'm hoping that this will also deliver. The back says, Theo and Kit have been a lot of things. Childhood best friends, crushes, lovers, and now estranged exes. After a brutal breakup on a flight to their dream European food and wine tour, they exited each other's lives. Time apart has done them some good. Theo is a bartender and an aspiring sommelier. I'm going to just throw the word up on the screen because it's like someone who is like, it's a wine expert, but I can't pronounce it to save my life. With a long roster of lovers, Kit graduated as the reigning sex god of his pastry school and now bakes at one of the finest restaurants in Paris. All that remains is the unused voucher for the European tour that never happened. 4 years later, it seems like a great idea to finally take the trip, solo, separately. It's not until Theo and Kit board the tour bus that they discover they both accidentally had the exact same idea. And now they're trapped with each other for 3 weeks of the most romantic sights and sensuous flavors of France, Spain, and Italy. But it'll be fine as long as they agree they're absolutely over each other. So when Theo suggests a friendly wager to see who can sleep with their hot Italian tour guide first, Kit is game. In fact, why stop there? Why not a full-on European hookup competition? Okay, that does... I mean, as long as everybody's consenting, but that still feels a little icky. But sometimes a taste of everything only makes you crave what you can't have. So I'm actually pretty happy with our little TBR for this video. So where am I going to start? Honestly, I think I'm going to start here. And guess what? I have the whole evening to myself. So we are going to probably finish this book tonight, though every time I say that in one of these videos, I come around tomorrow and go all sheepishly like, so I didn't finish it last night. So we shall see. But I am very excited to have pulled all 3 of these books, and I am super excited. I think that this will definitely hit the spot for romance that I have been feeling unfulfilled. So I will check in with you when I have something to say about the Bromance Book Club. So this is actually going to be more of a 2/3 of the way check-in instead of a halfway check-in because I have only about 100 pages left of this book. So I kind of had to force myself to stop and give you guys a check-in. So if that tells you anything about how much I am enjoying this book, I don't know what will. But this book follows Thea and Gavin. Gavin is a Major League Baseball player and Thea is his wife. And we meet them when they are 3 years into their marriage. So the two of them met and hit it off while Thea was still in college, right before Gavin went up to the majors, got called up to the majors. And they kind of have a whirlwind romance, and Thea ends up pregnant 3 months in. And Gavin kind of impulsively proposes to her. He doesn't like regret it. It's not like he's trying to, like make her an honest woman or anything. It's more so just that he's very happy. He wants her, he wants this, he wants the whole thing. But when they get married so early and Thea is like not a woman who's like been hanging around like professional athletes for an extended period of time, she doesn't realize what marrying him entails. Like the Wives and Girlfriends Club, the wife of being someone famous, the fact that she was pregnant and so she dropped out of school. So she basically gives up her own social circle, and all the people she socializes with now are people that she knows through Gavin for the most part. Like she still hangs out with her little sister and that kind of thing, but the majority of her social interaction is with people that she's not a huge fan of, but are kind of known through Gavin's professional connections. And then on top of that, she kind of gets shoved into motherhood very quickly. I mean, she's, always wanted to be a mom, is a great mom, but was, before her anticipated timeline, she has to give up school, which ends up meaning that she gives up like a career in art, which is what she was hoping for. And so we're now 3 years down the line, and Gavin has not realized that like you need to nurture a relationship, and she has felt like she's lost part of who she is. And so this kind of all comes to a head when Gavin has a like really, really good playoff game. He has the winning grand slam. It's a walk-off. It's the reason that his team wins. And when they get home, things get a little hot and heavy. And when she has an orgasm, he realizes that she has been faking getting off since the beginning of their marriage. So like not their whole relationship, but that's not a good ratio, 3 months to 3 years. And he takes it really, really poorly. Like gives her the silent treatment, sleeps in a different bedroom. Like he makes it all about him and his fragile ego. And this results in Thea going, you know what, get the hell out. And he does. And then she tells him that she wants a divorce, and he realizes that he might have just lost like the best part of his life, his wife and his kids. And so he desperately wants her back and is trying to fight for her back, but like kind of in all the wrong ways. And when his friends and teammates kind of realize that he is having difficulties in his marriage, they intervene. And they're like, look, first rule of book club is we don't talk about book club, which is kind of funny. But they basically introduce him to their book club, and basically every guy in this book club has had some difficulties in his relationship with his girlfriend, his fiance, his wife, whatever. And they decide, hi, baby. And they decide that they might want to read romances, like historical romances set in like Victorian England and the Regency era and like all of that, because in their minds, which is not inaccurate, romance is often written by women for women, and it kind of indicates, you know, what women might want. Not, you know, that it's 100% foolproof, every woman's different, but they figure, you know, hey, this is not a bad place to start trying to understand where we're going wrong. And so initially Gavin is very, very skeptical. He feels like they're punking him, and he eventually gives in because, as they point out, what else are you going to do? You know, what do you have something better to do with your time? And he starts seeing some parallels in the book between his behavior that got him, you know, sidelined, and the behavior of the male main character in the book, a little book inception, if you will. So he starts trying to fix things up with his wife, and he makes blunders and then succeeds in some ways and then makes more blunders. And I will say in the beginning, he's very grating, like as a character, you know, and honestly, that's kind of the point though, is that he's not likable and he's not a good husband in the beginning of this book. But he is learning, and whether or not Thea ends up taking him back at the end of this, which, you know, it's a romance, so but it's still like, it's, even if he didn't succeed in getting her back, I feel like he will have like grown from this. So it's also really sweet to see him with their kids and kind of learning how to better navigate their kids and kind of navigating as a family, because he has spent so much time on the road, and it kind of means that he is unfamiliar with how to fit into the greater family dynamic. So I am very excited to get to the end of this book and see if and how he succeeds in winning Thea over. I am happy to report that I have finished my first ever book for TBR Takedown, and I am kind of unsure how I feel about this book. So it really held my attention and entertained me the way a 5-star would, but there are definitely things about this book that threw me out of it. For example, Gavin, towards like the last quarter of the book, starts like cursing in Regency era language. For example, he like hits his head on something and starts like uses codpiece, and it's just like, it threw me out of the book every single time it happened. And there are other things that I didn't love. Like, I kind of felt by the last like 50 or so pages, I was just ready for it to be over, which was never like a great thing when you're reading a book. Like, I was so thoroughly entertained by like the first 2/3. And then towards the end, it was starting to lose me a little bit. Like, I do kind of appreciate the fact that we pivoted and the author felt the need to address maybe some deeper issues that are going on with Thea, because, Gavin did the work to self-improve and to try and make himself a better partner. And, marriage it takes two. And so for it to have such a thorough breakdown, I'm not saying that one person has to be at fault or two, but it couldn't have all been on him, especially because, at the end of the day, when you look at it, she did lie to him for 3 years, So I just felt like I was thoroughly entertained, but that the content of the book is maybe not a 5-star. So we shall see. But I am happy to say that this did scratch the romance itch I've been feeling. So hopefully the rest of this video continues this way. But I'm going to sit on this book and I will let you know how I'm going to be rating it at the end of this video, where I kind of do like the general wrap up. So with that being said, we are going to move on to our second book, which is The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. Now, I purposely picked this book to go second because I have trepidations about this book, shall we say. So I loved Red, White, and Royal Blue. Absolutely loved it. Also loved the film adaptation, but the premise of this book is not my favorite. I'm just not loving kind of the idea of two exes who are supposedly over each other and grown up and moved on to basically try and compete with who can get the highest body count out of vacation. Especially like the initial part where it's saying that they like are trying to sleep with the tour guide, like whoever can sleep with the tour guide first wins their bet. So I'm not a huge fan of that kind of dynamic. It just sounds a little toxic. So we shall see, but I am going to give it a good try because I did, like I said, really, really enjoy Red, White, and Royal Blue. So, I am very, very hopeful. And can we also have a moment of like appreciation for these sprayed edges? I realize that like sprayed edges on paperbacks are like not everybody's cup of tea, but I think these are really cute. So honestly, I'm probably going to finish like as much as I can tonight, but I won't check in with you until tomorrow because, I'm going to go take my makeup off and get cozy and take my contacts out and all that good stuff. And, I don't think I'll be functional enough to give you a halfway update in a couple hours. So I will see you guys tomorrow with how I am getting along with the pairing. Worst comes to worst, we have to go back and draw from the jar and I have to unhaul that book. But here's to hoping that, the back is just kind of not selling me and that the book itself is great. So my friends, I am bummed to be standing here because it means that I am going to be DNFing The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. Now, this is kind of a landmark moment, not in a great way. I don't really DNF stuff, like ever. I can kind of read anything. I like my urge to have finished something, to check off a task, to say I have finished a book is usually way, way stronger than my desire to DNF, and therefore I almost never do. So this is kind of the first time I have DNF'd in a very, very long time, and the first DNF on this channel. Now, I will say this is no hate to Casey McQuiston. I have very much enjoyed like Red, White, and Royal Blue. I still want to read One Last Stop, but this particular book is just not for me. And really quickly, before I talk about why, I do have a bit of misinformation that I spoke of in my earlier clips I need to clear up. This is not a male-male romance. Now, I seem to not be the only person under that impression when I looked online, but I don't know if that has marketing or if just, expectations about what Casey writes. But this follows two bisexual exes, one of whom is male, one of whom is non-binary, born female. So I was kind of thrown off in the first couple chapters when I came to realize that Theo is in fact non-binary, but nothing against this book, just something that I had wrong. But the reason why I'm DNFing this book, this is the horniest book I have read in a very long time, and not in a fun, sexy way, but in a angsty, teenage, cringy kind of way. And these people are not teenagers. They are in their mid to late 20s. But Theo is not like an enjoyable character to like be following. I will say that it's my understanding that Theo is the perspective we get in the first half of the book, and Kit is the perspective we get in the second half of the book. And the way that Kit has conducted himself in the first half of the book makes me think that I might actually enjoy his perspective in the second half of this book. But I'm like not invested enough to find out. So I don't enjoy Theo. The language is like very descriptive, very cool. Like the descriptions about food, the descriptions about drinks, and the cities are very, very cool. But that's like the most enjoyable part of the book. I'm not enjoying the main character whose perspective we're getting at the moment. I am not enjoying the premise of the book, which is that the two of them are sleeping their way through the locals at every city on their tour. I will say that, everybody's consenting, but it seems a little wild that the two of them are meeting a whole bunch of like 20 to 25 somethings who are also bisexual and interested. I'm wondering, I'm not bisexual, so I don't want to like speak on this too much. I am wondering if maybe this feeds a little bit into the stereotype that bisexual people are like slutty and sleep around. I don't know if I don't think that's Casey's intention, but it does kind of seem to be feeding into that stereotype a little bit. This is not for me, which is a bummer, but it is what it is. So we will be drawing for a new book in this video. And here is our endless TV jar, our never-ending TBR jar. I'm going to dig down. Another reason I didn't do this the first time is because I was worried it would blow up, but there we are. Figure if I'm careful, we won't have a problem. So, we are going to be reading... Oh goodness, okay. A time I got drunk and yeeted a love potion at a werewolf. So the thing about this is I have to make a decision. So the first book in the Mead Mishap series, if you did not see, landed on my May TBR. And I do kind of have a rule standing that, if I should be reading the first book or the next book I need in a series. And that would be the first book. But also they're interconnected standalones. Honestly, I don't have the brain power to do it. So we're just going to use my one skip to solve this issue and draw again. Oh, we got two. Okay. Let's go with this one. Why not? All right. So our third book in this video is going to be Twisted Hate by Anne Huang. That's actually kind of perfect because that is the next book I need in the Twisted series. So this is the third book in the Twisted series, and I think it follows the brother of the main character, the female main character from the first book. Gorgeous, cocky, and fast on his way to becoming a hotshot doctor, Josh Chen has never met a woman he couldn't charm except for Jules Ambrose. The beautiful redhead has been a thorn in his side since they met, but she also consumes his thoughts in a way no woman ever has. When their animosity explodes into one unforgettable night, he proposes a solution that will get her out of his system once and for all, an enemies with benefits arrangement with simple rules: no jealousy, no strings attached, and absolutely no falling in love. Outgoing and ambitious, Jules Ambrose is a former party girl who's focused on one thing: passing the attorney's bar exam. The last thing she needs is to get involved with a doctor who puts the suffer in insufferable, no matter how good looking he is. But the more she gets to know him, the more she realizes that there's more than meets the eye to the man she's hated for so long: her best friend's brother, her nemesis, and her only salvation. Theirs is a match made in hell, and when the demons from their past catch up with them, they're faced with truths that could either save them or destroy everything they've worked for. So, with that being said, this is now our third book in this video. I'm going to be tossing back the second book in the Mead Mishaps trilogy for another day. And we will be on our merry way. I have heard kind of a mixed bag about Twisted Hate. This seems to be people's least favorite from the series, but I am excited to read it. I kind of liked their dynamic in Twisted Love, so I'm excited to see where this goes. I am so happy to report that I am enjoying Twisted Hate much more than our last book in this video. So, as I said previously, this follows Josh and Jules, who are respectively the brother and best friend of the female main character, Ava, from like the first book in the Twisted series. And I had an inkling that I would like these two together because I very much enjoyed their banter in the first book. And so far, this book has not disappointed at all. The two of them just like go at loggerheads the moment they are in a room together. So their kind of distaste for each other starts in college when Ava and Jules are paired up as roommates. And Jules is not exactly like the best influence, but it's not exactly like she's purposely getting Ava in trouble. Ava's kind of like, I want to get out, let loose. And Jules is kind of, making that happen for her. And so Josh looks on Jules as a bad influence on his little sister. He's very, very protective of her. And he kind of tells Ava, which Jules overhears, that the two of them should not be friends and Ava should find a different roommate. And that's kind of where the distaste for each other stems. He feels that she is a troublemaker. She feels unfairly judged, and that now the two of them hate each other for all eternity. Which, it's kind of funny because as they admit later in the book, that's very like prejudicial, that they're not the same people they were when they met, and therefore it's kind of not fair to treat each other. Hello. It's kind of not fair to treat each other like they are the same people from back when they first met. But they come to a truce because Jules needs a like temporary position in between from when she like takes the bar and when they announce the results. The law firm that she has lined up at the moment will not allow an associate to start until their bar results are out. So she ends up deciding to take on a position at a healthcare clinic, which is associated with the hospital that Josh is a third-year resident doctor at. He also has spent the last couple of years volunteering at this clinic. And so the two of them decide that, in order to make the next couple months bearable, because prior to this, they've kind of only ever seen each other in passing when Ava has brought them together. So in order to make the next couple months bearable, they are going to call a truce and, not bicker every time they see each other. And of course, this progresses. They start making nice. They start realizing that maybe the other person is not everything that they think they are. That people might have depth and maturity and that kind of thing. And after a while, and after some, probing and some prodding and some button pressing outside of the clinic, the two of them decide to essentially hate hookup to quote unquote get each other out of, their respective systems. And we all know that, that is not, these things don't go to plan. These things never go to plan. And so the two of them start having feelings for each other. But I kind of suspect, based on what we're getting so far, that our issues are going to be Josh has issues trusting people. If you know anything from the events of the first book, which I will not say, because no spoilers here, but he feels very betrayed by two of the most important people in his life in the first book, and he has held that grudge for 3 years. And Jules has some stuff in her past. Her family, more specifically her mother, the fact that she was kicked out at a young age, she kind of fell in with the wrong crowd once she was kicked out. And she has, never necessarily been arrested, but has done some illegal things to try and survive. So I have a feeling that, her past is going to come haunt her in such a fashion that breaks Josh's trust in her. That's just, I will say that as much as I enjoy Anna Huang's books, they are predictable. You can kind of see things coming from a mile away. Not that that's a bad thing. I am enjoying this book very, very much. I just kind of, have a sneaking suspicion about where this is going. Of course, I won't say if I'm right or not, because that would be a spoiler in and of itself. But if you have read this book, I'm sure you are thinking either she is right or she is way off the mark. So we shall find out. And of course, I won't tell you if I am right. But I am going to go ahead and finish this book. I think I have like 200 pages left. So I will be finishing this tonight and starting Loath to Love You. So without further ado, I will check back in when I am done with this book. So I have finished our second book for this video, as I'm sure you guys saw. So I have some thoughts. First of all, this is definitely an Anna Huang book. There are some seriously outlandish storylines. Not that they're not fun. They are, but you know, a little blackmail, a little grand larceny, all that good stuff. But I will say that while I very much enjoyed this book, I enjoyed like the plot and the dynamic between our two characters. As I said, I am always down for some good banter, and I felt like these two had great banter. The third act conflict definitely, how shall I put this? I did not love how Josh handled himself. Specifically, if you've read this book, like the instant after everything like comes to fruition, after everything like comes out, after truths are told, so to speak, he just doesn't handle it well, and he lashes out in what I personally feel is kind of an unacceptable way, and I am kind of shooketh that Jules forgave him, because if it were me, I would absolutely not. So guess she's, you know, more of a forgiving person than me. She does say later in the book that she kind of understands why he did what he did. I still don't quite get it, but that's just a me thing. But other than him taking his feelings about the situation too far, in my opinion, I very much enjoyed this. This was fun. We got to see the first two couples in this series, like relationships progress in this book, which was really cool. We got introduced to the male main character in the first book of the Kings of Sin series, which was really interesting. So I had a great time with this book. I do not quite see why this is usually everybody's least favorite in the series. This is not by far, but I think this has been the one I enjoyed the most. And I think it's really the relationship between Josh and Jules that sold me. You know, like I said, love banter, love tension, and this book was filled with it. I will say, though, that this is by far the spiciest book in the Twisted series so far. And I think that's just kind of predicated on the premise of the book being, you know, that they are trying to hook up enough that they stop feeling certain ways about each other. But with that being said, I think I'm going to be rating this book 4 stars. That might change, but I will get back to you at the end of this video and let you know if it has. I don't think it will, but I think this is a 4-star book for me. So with that being said, we are on to our third and final book for my first ever TBR takedown, which is Loath to Love You. This is 3 novellas in one book, and I think it follows 3 friends who are in STEM. So my plan is to get started on this puppy, and I will check in with you after I finish each novella, and then we will wrap up this video. So I will see you guys in probably like 100 to 150 pages. So we are on to our final book for this video, and I have just finished Under One Roof, which is the first novella in Loath to Love You, and I have some thoughts. It's really funny. This is like, the novellas are very much like everything Ali Hazelwood, but like compacted and fast forwarded, which is kind of, I mean, that makes sense. But, you know, the quirky STEM feminist with the broody, very large man who, where there seems to be like kind of a misunderstanding between the two of them. That is like quintessential Allie Hazelwood. And we got that just, you know, in like 130-ish pages. So this first novella follows Mara and Liam. The two of them end up, as the title kind of implies, under one roof. So Mara has recently graduated with her PhD and is starting a job with the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. And she, like, her mentor passes away, her mentor / advisor. So like someone who's like guided her academic career and then pushed her onto like her more career goals. But this person dies, and in her will leaves Mara half ownership of a house. So the house was originally owned by the advisor and the advisor's brother. The advisor passed her half down to Mara, and the brother passed his half down to his son, Liam. So Mara decides that she's going to be moving into this house because she needs a cheap place to stay while she gets her career off its, you know, onto its feet and off to a good start. And Liam is like not welcoming. Although the two of them have like a very, very obvious initial physical attraction to each other, you know, the whole like he's dumbstruck and she's stumbling over her words and the whole 9 yards. And the two of them like have a go right from the start. He wants to buy her out of the house. She refuses. He doesn't want her moving in. She says, sucks to suck. I need a place to stay. I technically own half, even though he has been living in that house like for years. So essentially he just got an unexpected roommate after his aunt died. So it's kind of a wild dynamic. And then she's pretty hostile to him from the start. She is an environmental science major. And she, like I said, works for the EPA. And he works as a lawyer for a big oil corporation. And so, you know, their jobs are initially made to make the reader feel like they're supposed to be at loggerheads, they're natural enemies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I did enjoy it. I do think that I do better with Allie Hazelwood in longer stretches than 130 pages. I feel like this was like, I feel like you get a little bit more room to like cope with the like overly quirky female main character, yada, yada, yada. Like there's more nuance to it, which like then adds depth to the story. I feel like maybe at least in her early writing, Allie Hazelwood's just style doesn't lend itself to novellas. So we shall see if my opinion changes in the next two novellas. Each novella follows a like friend in like a 3-girl friend group. So I am interested from what I've seen of the other 2 girls in, you know, this first novella. I am interested to see where their stories are going. So I am going to read our next novella and let you know how I'm feeling. So one more novella down. I will say that I enjoyed Stuck on You a bit more than I did Under One Roof, which I was kind of surprised by because I kind of felt that the like premise of them being stuck in an elevator was not like super duper interesting, but it's told in the same style as the first novella, which is we kind of get like a present day, and then we do like a rewind, and this is how I got here. So the 2 characters in this one, Sadie and Eric, are they work in the same business. However, they work for rivaling companies, And that is kind of the like initial source of friction in between the two of them. But they meet, they get along wonderfully, wonderfully well. They go on a kind of impromptu date that turns into a real date, which turns into Sadie coming over and spending the night, only for things to kind of fall apart the next day. And then the two of them kind of have to deal with the fact that they work in the same office building, even though things have kind of gone to hell. So I did enjoy this novella, which then leaves us with one more, which I believe is Hannah's story. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that, and then we will be done with this video. So I have officially finished Loathe to Love You, and Below Zero was enjoyable. I think I'm going to be overall giving this book, or like this collection of novellas, 3 stars. I enjoyed them, but like I said in, I think, my first check-in, I'm not sure if I love Allie Hazelwood on Fast Forward. So Below Zero follows Hannah and Ian. Ian is actually Mara from the first novella's cousin, distant cousin. And Mara connects the two of them because Hannah needs to interview somebody who's in her future profession for a college project. And that's how the two of them connect. And things get a little hot and heavy at the end of the interview. Nothing too far, but there's definitely, some making out, some getting handsy, that sort of thing. And when he proposes that they go on an actual proper date, she turns him down because she doesn't date. She's not emotionally available. She doesn't have time for that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, their interview together produces career goals for her. And so they then meet when she is done with her PhD and now working for NASA and kind of following these steps he laid out for a very prestigious NASA career by basically joining a specific team and going on a specific expedition and all that stuff. So she goes on this expedition and she ends up falling into a crevasse. And she's told by the team that due to the weather in Norway and that kind of thing, and this snowstorm that's coming, they don't have the ability to come get her before the storm hits. And Ian decides, even though he's not even supposed to be there, that he is going to get her. And they have had some prior issues to this. She's had to go at him for something that was once again a misunderstanding. I feel like these novellas, like I said, in a prior check-in, very much follow the Allie Hazelwood formula of, small, tiny, quirky female main character, large, grumpy, gruff male main character, although Ian's not gruff, but I think the other two are. And they have a misunderstanding that leads to, their relationship not developing smoothly. But I still enjoyed this book. So like I said, I'm going to be giving it 3 stars. And then to wrap up this video, these are the other 3 books I read. So I read the Bromance Book Club, and I initially didn't give it a rating. I think I am going to be rating it. I'm still torn between 3.5 and 4 stars, just because while I very, very much enjoyed it, it's it had me in a chokehold there for the first 75-80%. I didn't love the last 25 to 20% of this book, and also sometimes it was a little bit cringy. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm still bobbling back and forth between 3.5 and 4. And then I DNF'd the pairing about 150 pages in. I just felt like this was a book that was not for me. It's very, very horny, but like I said, not in a fun way, more in an angsty, cringy way. And I just couldn't bring myself to care about the characters. And then I read Twisted Hate by Anna Huang, and I ended up rating this book, I believe I said 4 stars, and I am sticking to it. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was very fun, although, Josh could work on his conflict resolution skills. But other than that, that is the end of our video together, the end of my first ever TBR takedown, which I am happy to say that we've gotten 4 books off my TBR in this video, which is a marked improvement. So I will take it. But if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to stick around for future episodes, please subscribe. Either way, I appreciate you joining me today. Bye!